Welcome to another Mike Flanders podcast. Well, today is a kind of an interesting and different subject matter than what I've been speaking about lately. I have a dear friend of mine that we had breakfast together today, and we're coming close to Christmas, so we thought we would say hi to each other. And this particular gentleman has had incredible years of experience in the radio world, and we met several years ago working on a project that I'd produced, and his area is promotions, radio media, and welcome Tim Riely to the show.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here, and I've listened to a couple of your podcasts and enjoy them. And
good. Well, it's all off the cuff, and it's just chatting away, educating people about who we are, what we enjoy, and especially, I think what we could dive into today is the really, as we both know, and we're both faced with it, the music industry that we grew up in has changed rapidly. Is that your phone?
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me turn
See how important it is?
Yeah,
It's just phone calls. So
there we go. Turn that off.
So the funny thing is Tim's a busy guy. So we're lucky to have him here today. Tim, let's just first of all dive back to your history in Memphis and give the listeners a scope of, where you started off, and then we can kind of get to where it is today.
Yeah, I started off in Memphis with a small label called Pepper Records. It's a Memphis-based label in that incredible music community. And, I worked there for a couple of years and then struck out on my own. During that process, I developed friendships with Isaac Hayes, David Porter, kind of my mentor, Steve Cropper.
Wow.
John King, who's a music historian, and two gentlemen that have passed away, John Fry, who owned Ardent Recordings.
Oh, that was a big famous place.
Yeah, it still is. They still do a lot of great work there. And Marty Lacker, who gave me my first job in the music business. Marty was, at one time, Elvis Presley's right-hand man.
Oh, really?
Everywhere Elvis went, there was Marty.
Wow.
He carried the cash and the checkbook. And there's some amazing stories Marty told about
taking care of business, right?
Taking care of TCB.
Yep.
And so I started my own promotion and marketing company in 1969. Worked with some of the biggest pop, rock, and R&B acts, and had a
name a couple.
Well, everybody from Dionne Warwick, Elton John to Kiss. I mean, it was a broad spectrum of talent. I worked with, of course, Isaac Hayes and the Shaft Project, numerous Stax artists, and
that was a brand, wasn't it? More than
totally.
It
was totally a complete. Back then, branding was a little bit easier because you had an artist that was producing incredible music. Not to say they aren't today, but you had a record company that was just totally devoted to establishing that one artist. They developed them one at a time.
Yeah, right, okay.
And there was not a prolific...
16 things going at once.
Yeah. So it was a lot more fun and a lot more rewarding.
Well, very focused. Because if that was your job, you're not getting blindsided by, but did you do that? Did you work, how did that, where's that track at radio this week or blah, 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 right? So, wow.
In 83, I moved to Nashville. The Memphis music community had kind of, when Stax closed, a lot of things.
So when Stax closed, how earlier would have Sun closed? What was
Sun closed, I want to say, 5 or 6 years prior to Stax closing.
Right.
And I knew all the Phillips, Knox and Sam, and I forget the brother's name.
I met the son, Jerry. I met Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah.
So Jerry and Knox are my age, so
right.
And Sam was the head guy at Sun.
The dad.
Yeah. And
And do you think he was a visionary, or do you think he was more of a businessman that just opened the doors and the right people happened to just wander through at those times? Or
I think it was a combination of both. I think he was a very shrewd businessman. But I also think that it was very opportunistic timing. You know, it just the right folks walked through the door at the right time.
Because America after World War II was like in this blossoming state anyway, wasn't it?
Right.
I mean, you know, the motor vehicles, the music, the amplification, electric guitar, and all that was happening, and there was big resurgence. And he was right there at the end of that conduit, wasn't he, where these people were wandering in, and he had the doors and the signs open, and if there was those talented people in that town, where was there else to go?
Exactly.
Stax or there, right?
Stax or
and with Stax, was that more? It was more of the soulful music at Stax, though, wasn't it? And that was the Steve Cropper kind of.
My ex-father-in-law, who's passed away, John Novarese, owned a label called High Records, and they had Al Green.
Oh man!
And what a catalog of monster songs. And, you know, the fun part about me is I got to attend sessions.
Yeah, right.
When they were cutting it. And then, you know, when it came time to release it, I knew all the background behind the song.
So you could go to radio
I could go to radio or retail or anywhere and tell them a story. You just didn't walk in and say, hey, I've got a hit record.
Yeah. Here's the
play my record or buy my record.
Yeah.
You really had the knowledge.
Yeah.
Today's world, a lot of labels are structured to where some of the employees just don't have that
the
ground zero, you know, from the bottom up. Education.
Yeah. Or the personal the personal tie with the actual artist.
Right.
I mean, going back in my experiences, you know, working at that label years ago, we had the artist would even come into the boardroom and on a Friday afternoon, and there'd be beer and wine and cheese, and they'd acoustically play the songs, and that was our first connection. If you weren't in the development stage of that act, so you actually got to go to the recording session and see Steve Cropper playing guitar on that thing, and I'll run that again. I
was at a lot of Booker T and the MG sessions.
Oh, man.
You know, and those guys, I mean, you know, to me, when I first got involved in the music business, I was kind of starstruck. But as you get into the actual creative process and you get to know these individuals and great musicians, you know, they're just like me and you, you know. They put their pants on the same way we do. And they're just down-to-earth, kind people. And it was just an incredible education for me. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And you did actually get to meet Elvis at one point.
I met Elvis one time. Marty invited me to his Christmas party. It was held in the Thunderbird Lounge, which was in a basement of an apartment building. And it was really strange. I was standing there talking to somebody, and I took a step back, and I bumped in to this gentleman's back, and I turned around, and it was Elvis Presley looking me straight in the face, 6 inches away, and I just went, I could not talk. He had that sort of
charisma.
When he came in the room, you could feel the charisma. You could see the aura around him.
Yeah.
But when I turned around,
there he was.
It was
the king.
He said, "Welcome to my Christmas party." And I work for Marty Lacker. He said, "I'm so sorry."
Really?
Yeah, you know, he
was a character.
He had a great sense of humor.
Oh, God, that's great.
And then several years later, of course, he passed away. And
yeah, I was pretty young.
But since I've been in Nashville, you know, I did a lot of marketing and branding projects for.
Well, tell the listeners about your experience with breaking Tim McGraw.
Oh wow, that was an interesting.
So you would like have
there was
a
a new
role in that.
Mike Curb had just moved to Nashville. He had a label here. It was run by one of the Borchettas.
Mike
Borchetta, correct. Excuse me. And I had tried to talk to Mike, about doing some marketing or radio specials or a cornucopia of, content that I felt they needed. And Mike, when he moved to town, he brought a gentleman named Dennis Hannon.
Oh.
And Dennis I always said, Bo knows football and Dennis Hannon knows the music business. And so I cold called Dennis one day and I said, hey, I'm Tim Riely, and I'd sure like to see if I could do some business with Curb Records. And he said, what do you do? And I basically said in the 2 sentences what I do. He said, where are you? And I said, I'm in my office. He said, how soon can you get here? And I said, well, I'm 2 blocks away. He said, come on over, and just hung up the phone. Didn't say
didn't
goodbye.
Even give you the address.
No, well, I knew it because I drove by the building. So, me, I went,
Yeah.
And we struck up a friendship that continues to this day. And he was the kind of gentleman that said, okay, here is the task at hand. Go do it. And that was it.
Yeah.
And, he didn't ask,
His formula, keep it simple,
he just keep it simple.
Yep.
Here's what I want you to accomplish.
Yep.
Go do it. And it was the best marching orders I ever got.
So was that at the beginning of Tim's Nashville career?
Mike Borchetta had signed Tim to Curb Records, and they had released a couple of singles that didn't do well, and an album that Tim later told me, in the music business, you get a gold record or a platinum record or double platinum. Tim said his first album went wood. It just went nowhere.
The old joke was it went vinyl in the first week, right?
And so my first project for Dennis and Mike and a number of people on the staff was to start working with Tim McGraw. So we produced a number of radio specials throughout his career at Curb, and we did a lot of retail campaigns back then with Walmart and Target and things like that. And it just developed into, a real fun 15, 16-year run with.
Wow.
I didn't work I was not a Curb employee. I was a contracted employee.
Yeah.
And reported to Dennis.
Yeah, right.
And it was just a lot of fun. And then, I've worked with some other artists at major labels, like Reba and George. Garth Brooks, I did a lot of work for him in his early days. And so I've just tried to, be honest to myself.
About what you love.
About what I love, and then what the artist
really requires.
What the label tells you one thing, and the artist says, "Yeah, this is what I want, but can we do a little bit of this?" And if it's within the bounds of the marketing plan, I always agree with them and go forward.
Because then you're connected to them, and vice versa. They feel that they're part of the process.
And in the last few years, as you know, you and I worked a little bit on Jeremy Parsons, who I think is an amazing artist, and I haven't worked on anything for a while, and then I came across Jonelle Polanski, who's an incredible writer, producer, engineer, and she has an artist, and his name is Cameron.
Right.
And I'm genuinely excited about the prospects of this young man.
Cool.
He's a country artist with kind of a little pop flavor, and I'm just really excited about working with Cameron.
Dig your claws into it.
Yeah. So that's my history in a nutshell.
That's beautiful. Well, let's just dive quickly into, obviously you and I both know that, we came from, the digital. We saw digital move away from analog, and now we're seeing, the physical move into more digital. And this last few years, we've had to kind of scratch our heads about the delivery system's different. It's like you said, how you would get the physical by even being part of the emotional and physical part of the performance. Now a label person can get a digital download of something, and that's all they get.
Right.
There's nothing tangible in their hands to touch. We're just emailing. So I suppose some of that emotional side, for me, I get to create a song with someone sitting in this room that we're in today, and pen and paper still. I don't write on my computer where some writers write on the computer. I'm still on a pad and pen and an acoustic guitar. And then if we think we've got something, we put down a work tape,
Exactly.
And so I'm still involved in the inception, and then guys like you come in and grab that ball and run with it. So when you get a song, now you get it digitally, and then you try and meet these people, so you've got an emotional attachment to them. But, I mean, how has it affected your life from being someone that can talk about Elvis in the vinyl days to being able to see where we are? Would you say that's 40 years later?
Yes, at least.
Yeah.
And
so 4 decades you've seen.
I've been in the business officially since 1967, so I think I'm at 51 years.
Right, so I was 5.
Of course, I started when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about what you're talking about, from the creative level to or from the concept to the inception to the actual creative process that you as a producer, writer, go through, really hasn't changed that much.
No, that's right.
Except you have all these neat tools.
Yes.
You have Pro Tools and all these bells and whistles and assets that you can go to that back in we call it the day, it was just straight on. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the band played and the artist sang. And no
click track, nothing. Yep, down she went,
But when I get music sent to me, because I get a lot of it sent to me, and I try to listen to everything, it's really hard to relate. Here's what I'm saying. Most of the stuff I get is marginal.
Yeah.
Meaning the artist's heart is totally in it. Their songwriting, they're trying really hard, but they don't have a Mike Flanders to guide and nourish their abilities, or a Jonelle Polanski, or a Dan Huff. Yeah, exactly.
Someone that can take the reins and steer them to a much more a place that as a professional we can see the holes in the net, as I call it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I wrote on Monday with a young gentleman from Brazil. And he's been living here, and Mike Krasky is looking after him. And I've had 2 sessions writing, and I kind of figured how he was inspired, and that's exactly it. He's a wonderful young 19-year-old that actually has all the ability. And it's beautiful to see where you can throw a line at a kid, and it's a good line, and he might put one little twist on it, and all of a sudden, oh, that's great, Right. And that is the part that I still enjoy. Is I love working with people that we're interacting. I don't like the writer that I sit with that you're slaving.
Exactly.
When it becomes hard work that way, and then it's just not a two-way street.
No.
That's talent, and I think that there's a lot of that happening again. There's new kids on the block, and they're inspired. They can see that they can grab their own ball and run with it if they have to.
Right.
They don't see things as a struggle as much with the digital era. May not make the money that we used to be able to make, but they see the avenues.
Right.
And I mean, that's, so what's your personal view? The microphone?
Sorry about that.
What's your personal view on streaming after coming through what you've come through, and used to, obviously you would service to terrestrial radio, right? Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel now?
Well, now record companies have numerous platforms to generate revenue.
Yeah.
There's what we call the standard practice of getting radio, terrestrial radio, and satellite radio to play the music, and they still play the chart game where, they get ads and move a record up the charts. And then you've got all the streaming services, and there's so many, it's hard. But a friend of mine at a label told me they would rather do business with Apple.
Really?
Because Apple, and I'm making up an example, but if they sell if someone downloads a song from Apple, it's a 99-cent, usually a 99-cent fee Apple charges them. The label/artist, they get somewhere between 70 and 73 cents, where that's not the platform or the protocol that Spotify will use.
No.
You'd have to have hundreds of millions of downloads to equal.
So they're saying using Apple Playlist as an Apple streaming service, and then those people that are
that's
already...
the largest, in my opinion, that's the largest revenue stream.
So I'm a member of this, I'm an Apple user, and I have my Apple Playlist, and then obviously if you're hot on something, you can then just download it.
Right.
And then you've got it forever, or you can keep it on your playlist, basically, and pay your streaming fees.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Your
But
subscription.
with all of that, and then the advent of course, music videos were around in the 70s, late 60s. You had artists like David Bowie, making music videos before anybody knew they were music videos.
Yeah, because he was so arty.
And so there's all these different platforms to expose an artist. But it all comes back down to what you referred to earlier, is you've got to have a great song.
Yeah.
You've got to be studious in how you present the song.
Yeah.
And then you've got to totally believe in the artist and his or her ability to take the song out to the public.
Yeah.
Because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yes.
Is live performances. And the biggest single revenue stream now in the music industry is merchandising.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have to be aware and tie all these different elements together when you hopefully successfully release a project. Because if you leave an element out,
there's a revenue stream out.
Right. And that's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Our world's turned into selling T-shirts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think we've had a pretty good talk.
Well, thank you, Mike, for having me.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We're in December of 2019. This is a very informative chat with would you classify yourself as a promoter, radio promoter? What would your title be, Tim?
I'm a marketing, branding, promotion sort of thing. I would say more of a marketing person.
Okay.
That includes sales, promotion, development, those areas.
Yeah. So you've got a gentleman that's had 40, 50 years from the inception of Memphis, Tennessee, when the 50s was blowing up, to the most incredible music in the world that we still listen to today. Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis. Who else was come out of Sun back then?
Well, those were the main ones.
Yeah.
But out of Stax, you got Aretha Franklin cut most of all her early records at Stax.
Did you meet her?
No, I never met Aretha.
Wow.
Somehow I just...
She walked out the door and you were driving away in your car.
Yeah, exactly. We would cross paths.
You got to meet Al Green, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Steve said, well, Aretha just left. I went, thanks, Steve. Why didn't you give me a buzz?
Yeah, well, if the listeners don't know, I have met Steve Cropper also several times. I met Donald Duck Dunn.
Oh, I love Dunn. You passed away.
I know. I drank a few red wines with Dunn one night. But the songs that Steve Cropper co-wrote are some of the most played songs in radio history.
Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
And Midnight Hour.
Midnight Hour.
I mean, I suppose they're the two pinnacle tracks, right? You know. So this is the kind of history we're talking about. These are the individuals that live in this town that we live in, and I hope we're giving the listeners something that they are enjoying. Merry Christmas. This is Mike Flanders signing off. Tim Riely signing off. And let's hope 2020 brings us lots of joy and success in what we'd love to do. Thank you very much for listening. Cheers.